put in context the geography piece, because there's two perspectives, right? There's the government, or there's the economic development engine of, we care about entrepreneurship because we want local value. And then there's that kind of less geography focused entrepreneurial mindset of, we want to build successful companies wherever they are. And those are two kind of easily understood perspectives, but they sometimes come in contrast, right? So Dreamit has some successful companies that have stayed in Philadelphia and have flourished, and have had companies that have gone elsewhere to flourish, to more traditional technology markets. How do you guys kind of partner those two missions of economic development with a civic mindedness of a local community, and just a sheer do what's best for an individual company?
Ultimately, I think it has to be what's best for the entrepreneur, what's best for the founders of the companies. We've demonstrated in each of the cities in which we operate accelerators the ability to draw people internationally to those cities. At that point, it's really up to the city to make sure that those world-class entrepreneurs stay in the city afterwards. That's a challenge in some jurisdictions. It's a challenge whether the company will find investment capital in those cities. In several instances, as you mentioned, Chris, they have. In other instances, they've had to go elsewhere. But the fact that as Dreamit, we're able to bring entrepreneurs from all over the world to Philadelphia, to Austin, to New York, to Tel Aviv, that we're able to bring people there is, I think, the first step in economic development. Dreamit has launched over 102 companies, and we've launched exactly 102 companies, and we have another 35 that are going to be launched this summer. Those companies are creating jobs in each of the locations where they end up. There's over 600 high-quality jobs that have been created through Dreamit companies, and many, many more as we accelerate the number of companies that we launch. So these are very high-value jobs in very desirable industries that we're bringing to each of the cities in which we operate. And we could always use more help keeping them there.
Do you think it's getting easier? I mean, you've mentioned 5 years of Dreamit, and you've been involved in communities long before Dreamit, all three of you. Is it getting easier to build a company in a non-traditional market? Has anything changed? I mean, you mentioned cost, which is probably a universal, but in terms of those divides, awareness, is it getting easier to do that? And do you picture, as Dreamit continues, it makes more sense for some of those companies to stay in those markets? Is it getting easier?
Ultimately, a company has to go one of two places: where the money is and where the customers are. So yes, it's easy, depending upon who your customers are, to be anywhere in the country, or the world for that matter, if you're able to reach your customer effectively.
Do you guys in your experiences, have you guys seen that change? I mean, from being involved in a company in the 90s to now, yeah. Is it any easier, or it's similar challenges?
I mean, I think it's easier. The other thing that I think has changed, beyond just the cost factor, is that there's more of a willingness for people to share and to work together. I think early 90s, late 90s, everyone wanted to have the next great whatever it was going to be. And they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to tell even investors what they were working on until it was completely done and ready to go in prime time. And now what you find is people are releasing product on a daily basis. They're testing, they're learning, they're executing, they're out executing someone who has the exact same product, and creating value for themselves, because the whole conversation has shifted from kind of baking it in the oven and only taking it out when it's ready to, I'm just going to put my stuff out there. I'm going to depend on the community to help me refine it, depend on customers, direct customer feedback, real-time feedback, leverage technology to move even faster and to iterate on the fly. And I think that because of that, you're seeing a lot more collaboration. We're seeing people build products and build companies where they're leveraging people from other parts of the world, when that was just not a consideration before. And so, in a lot of ways, the playing field is getting leveled, and you're able to draw on talent from a lot of different places. So the region is helpful to kind of bring that into one place, but people have the tools now to really build great products and build them faster.
One thing I wanted to say, 5 years ago, Dreamit started in 2008, there was a lot of institutions that were already here. But it's fair to say that in that kind of organic technology community in the early stage, there's been a flourishing of physical spaces like we are in here now, the companies that have happened, the conversation, the culture, a lot of that has blossomed the past 5 years. Are there specific things you can point to as reasons you think that has happened and that you'd want to share or you think you'd want to highlight? What has Philadelphia done right, or was it inevitable to happen? Other than Dreamit, of course.
Well, I actually, the reason I was hesitating, I think Dreamit has been a very significant factor as the center of gravity for a lot of the activity. When you can attract companies from Costa Rica, from Sweden, from all over Honduras, all over the world, which we have, to a city, then the city does have a reason to build the infrastructure around that community. And I think that Dreamit has been a very significant factor. There's some economic development money that also has been a very salutary factor. And then there have been the early stage investors like First Round Capital, Genicast, Comcast Ventures. All have done a very nice job of supporting the community generally.
You become named tomorrow mayor or czar of whatever market, Philadelphia or a smaller one even. What are a few of your first steps to try to cultivate an entrepreneurial ecosystem that I would assume all of you think is really important for any city?
No more parking tickets.
Why is that?
No, I joke about it, but I'm really serious. I mean, I think that the challenge is to make your city an attractive place. You got to make it sticky. And we see in Philadelphia, I'm not from Philadelphia, but Philadelphia has always had historically the reputation of people pass through it, they don't stay. And you're starting to see that change a little bit, and you're starting to see the population grow here. And I believe that there are just places here now, there are opportunities that make it a much more sticky place. And it's not just because you have a family member that's from here or you have direct ties to the region. I think people are starting to find that there's a place for them in this city. I think it basically falls upon the responsibility of the leaders of the city to figure out what else do we need to do? What else could we possibly do that's in our realm of consideration to say we can make some additional adjustments to make this a much more livable place for the entrepreneurs, a much more attractive place for the entrepreneurs. When you look at the types of individuals that are launching companies, yes, it does skew a lot towards the younger generation. So what are they looking for? They may not care as much about some of the things that you have in your city today, but as you kind of look at where they are in their evolution and as they're developing, there are other things that may make that just might be more attractive to them, whether it be from a social standpoint, perhaps it's just from a public policy perspective that makes it a much more livable city. There are inherent advantages of living in Philadelphia versus living in Washington, D.C., which is a place that I've lived, and living in New York City, which is another place that I've lived. And to be able to market those opportunities and those benefits in a way that resonates with the community you're trying to attract, that's where I think we'll start to see a lot more people coming into the city, realizing they can build companies here and staying here. And ultimately, those younger people become older people that again start to attract more and more individuals, and they start to leverage more of the city's amenities, if you will, that it may already have. I think it's upon the leadership of the city to kind of find those new things that they can bring in and use that to market it to its advantage.
I would do two things, right? I put early stage capital to work. I mean, that's a message. Right? City or state money. Okay, you've seen where it works in New York City. Okay, so the innovation sector is the net creator of jobs in this economy. We know that innovation's how this country's been built, and it's innovation, it's how this company is going to continue to thrive and develop in its greatness. So put more capital to work in early stage companies directly. That's number one. Number two, I would showcase those local entrepreneurs that have been successful and that are putting their own risk capital to work. Because I believe William said earlier, it's the risk capital, right? So Philadelphia certainly is a city of wealth. However, a lot of the wealth is from traditional family wealth, and it's not necessarily risk capital. I believe one of the reasons why the region has started to thrive in the past couple of years is that you've seen these successful entrepreneurs that are turning around and investing in the next generation, be it, David and the founders of Dreamit, be it Josh Koppelman, be it, the eCount guys that have branched off in various ways. I think that successful entrepreneurs turning around and investing in and working with the next generation of companies is critical as well.
I would have a very pragmatic first step, which would be I would eliminate the wage tax and maybe replace it even with tax credits for any company that increased its employee census by at least 20% in the prior year. So to encourage people to come here to build their companies, at bottom, the more jobs you have, the more revenue you're going to generate. And instead of having this disincentive to founding companies here and for people working in companies to be here, I think that if you arrange the tax structure, mostly people follow financial rationality. And if you rearrange the tax structure to accomplish entrepreneurial growth, you can achieve it.